was lying in a hospital bed 3 days after emergency gallbladder surgery, still groggy from anesthesia and connected to an IV drip, when my daughter Nicole walked in with her husband Derek and a stack of real estate papers. "Mom," she said, not even asking how I was feeling, "we need you to sign these. We're selling your house to pay off our debts. Derek talked to a realtor, and we can list it next week." She said it so casually, like she was discussing the weather, instead of stealing the home I'd lived in for 32 years. The home her father and I had bought when she was 3 years old. The home where every corner held memories of a life built through sacrifice and love. I tried to sit up, pain shooting through my abdomen, and managed to say, "What?" before Nicole thrust the papers at me. "Just sign, Mom. You're not going to need this big house anymore anyway. You can move into a senior apartment. This is really the best solution for everyone." My name is Barbara Chen. I'm 70 years old, and this is the story of how I learned that the child you sacrifice everything for can become the person who takes everything from you, and how fighting back when you're at your weakest can make you stronger than you've ever been. Nicole is my only child. I'm a widow. My husband James died 8 years ago from a stroke at 64, leaving me with a paid-off house worth approximately $420,000, his life insurance of $150,000, and a modest pension of $2,200 a month from my 30 years working as a bank teller. James and I had been careful, frugal. We'd bought our 3-bedroom house in 1992 for $87,000 and paid it off in 20 years through extra payments and sacrifice. It was our pride, our security, our legacy for Nicole. Nicole married Derek 6 years ago. He works in construction management, making about $75,000 a year. Nicole works as a dental hygienist, making $58,000. Combined, they should have been comfortable. But Derek had expensive tastes. Luxury trucks, fishing boats, ATVs, the latest technology. And Nicole, who'd grown up watching her parents scrimp and save, seemed determined to live the opposite lifestyle. Within 2 years of marriage, they were drowning in debt. The requests for help started small. "Mom, can you loan us $3,000? Derek's truck needs major repairs and we're short this month." I loaned them the money. They never paid it back. "Mom, we're behind on our mortgage. Can you help with 2 months' payments? Just $3,400 total. We'll pay you back when Derek's bonus comes through." The bonus came and went. No repayment. Over 6 years, I gave Nicole and Derek $67,000. I kept records because I'm a bank teller. I document everything. It included $18,000 for their mortgage payments during various rough patches, $12,000 for Derek's truck repairs and upgrades, $8,500 for credit card debt they claimed was from emergencies, $7,000 for a boat Derek needed for his mental health, $6,000 for furniture for their house, $4,200 for their son Ethan's daycare when they couldn't afford it, and $11,300 for various other requests that ranged from vet bills to vacation deposits to legal fees when Derek got into a dispute with a contractor. Every time I hesitated, Nicole used the same manipulation. Dad would have helped us. Dad always said family takes care of family. She weaponized James's memory like a blade, and it worked every single time. I gave them money I couldn't afford to give, withdrew from my savings, cashed out CDs early and paid penalties, all because I believed that being a good mother meant sacrificing for your child no matter what. But giving them $67,000 wasn't enough. They wanted more. They always wanted more. 3 months ago, Nicole started making comments about my house. "Mom, this place is way too big for you. 3 bedrooms for 1 person? It doesn't make sense. You should downsize." Then, "Mom, have you thought about what's going to happen to this house when you die? The property taxes alone are going to eat up any inheritance. It would be smarter to sell now while the market is good." And finally, "Mom, Derek and I have been thinking. What if you moved into a senior apartment? You'd have less maintenance, more social opportunities, and you could use the equity from the house to help us get out of debt. It's really a win-win. A win-win. Where I lose my home and they get hundreds of thousands of dollars to pay off debts they'd accumulated through irresponsible spending." I told Nicole no, multiple times. I told her I loved my house, that it was full of memories of her father, that I'd worked for 30 years to pay it off and I wasn't giving it up. She'd smile tightly and say, "Okay, Mom, just think about it." But I could see the calculation in her eyes. She wasn't asking. She was planning. Then I got sick. It started with pain in my upper right abdomen that I initially dismissed as indigestion, but it got worse over 3 days until I couldn't stand upright. My neighbor Carol found me collapsed on my kitchen floor and called 911. The ER doctors diagnosed acute cholecystitis, an infected gallbladder that needed immediate surgical removal. I was terrified. I'm 70 years old and surgery is always risky. I called Nicole from the ER, and she sounded appropriately concerned. "Oh my God, Mom. I'll be right there." She showed up an hour later with Derek, and they sat with me while the doctors explained the procedure. Nicole held my hand. Derek patted my shoulder. They seemed like the loving family I'd always believed we were. The surgery went well. I woke up in recovery, nauseated and disoriented but alive. Nicole and Derek visited that evening. "We're so glad you're okay, Mom," Nicole said, kissing my forehead. We were so worried. They stayed for 20 minutes, then left, saying they'd be back the next day. I spent 2 nights in the hospital. The pain was significant, managed by medication that left me foggy and exhausted. I could barely sit up without help. Couldn't walk more than a few steps without dizziness. I was vulnerable in a way I'd never been before. Physically weak, mentally cloudy, completely dependent on others. That's when Nicole and Derek made their move. They came to my hospital room on the 3rd day, mid-morning. I'd just been told I'd likely go home the next day. I was relieved, thinking about recovery in my own house, sleeping in my own bed. Nicole walked in carrying a leather folder I didn't recognize. Derek followed, closing the door behind him. "Mom, how are you feeling?" Nicole asked, but she didn't wait for an answer. She pulled a chair close to my bed and opened the folder. "We need to talk about something important. Derek and I have been discussing your situation." "My situation?" My voice was weak, scratchy from the breathing tube they'd used during surgery. "Your living situation," Derek clarified, standing at the foot of my bed like he was giving a business presentation. "Barbara, you're 70 years old. You just had major surgery. Living alone in a 3-bedroom house isn't safe or practical anymore." "I'm fine. I'll be fine once I recover." "Mom, listen," Nicole interrupted. "We've already talked to a realtor. The market is incredible right now. Your house could sell for $440,000, maybe more. That would completely pay off our debts and leave you with enough for a nice senior apartment. We've even looked at a few places. There's a really nice 1-bedroom in Riverside Meadows for $200 a month. You'd love it." I stared at her, trying to process through the pain medication fog. "You want to sell my house?" "It's the smart thing to do," Derek said. "You're not getting any younger, Barbara. What happens next time you have a medical emergency? You could fall, break a hip, lie there for hours before anyone finds you. In a senior community, there are people around. It's safer. I don't want to move. That's my home." "Mom, don't be stubborn about this," Nicole said, her voice taking on an edge. "We're $143,000 in debt. Credit cards, the boat loan, the truck loan, the second mortgage we took out on our house. We're drowning. You can help us. You can save us. And honestly, it's the least you can do after everything we've done for you." Everything they'd done for me. I'd given them $67,000 over 6 years, and somehow they believed they were the ones who'd done everything for me. "Nicole, I'm not selling my house to pay your debts." Her face hardened. "Mom, we're not asking. We're telling you this is happening. You're 70 years old, you just had surgery, and you can barely function on your own. We've already talked to a lawyer. We can get power of attorney on the grounds that you're medically incapacitated and unable to make sound financial decisions. This can happen the easy way or the hard way." I felt like I'd been punched. My own daughter, standing in my hospital room while I was recovering from surgery, was threatening to have me declared incompetent so she could steal my house. "Get out," I whispered. "Mom, get out of my room. Now." Derek stepped forward, his voice low and threatening. "Barbara, you need to think very carefully about this. We're your family. We're the ones who'll be taking care of you when you can't take care of yourself. You don't want to make us your enemies. You're already my enemies if you're trying to steal my house while I'm in a hospital bed. Get out before I call security." Nicole's mask of false concern slipped completely. "Fine, be difficult. But this isn't over, Mom. That house is going to be ours one way or another. Either you sign it over voluntarily, or we'll go through the courts. Your choice." They left, and I was alone in my hospital room, shaking from a combination of pain, medication, and the horror of what had just happened. My daughter, the child I'd raised, sacrificed for, given $67,000 to, had just tried to coerce me into signing away my home while I was at my most vulnerable. I pressed the call button for the nurse. When she came in, I asked her to bring me my phone. My hands were trembling so badly I could barely dial, but I managed to call Carol, my neighbor. Barbara? How are you feeling? Carol, I need help. Nicole and Derek just tried to get me to sign papers to sell my house. They threatened to have me declared incompetent. I don't know what to do. There was a sharp intake of breath. Those bastards. Okay, listen to me. Do not sign anything. Do not agree to anything. I'm calling my son. He's a lawyer, remember? He'll know what to do. Are you safe right now? I think so. They left. I'm coming to the hospital. Don't let anyone else in your room until I get there. Carol arrived an hour later with her son Marcus, who specialized in elder law. He was in his mid-40s, professional and direct. Mrs. Chen, my mother, told me what happened. I need you to tell me everything from the beginning. I told him about the 6 years of financial requests, the $67,000 I'd given them, Nicole's increasing pressure for me to sell the house, and finally the hospital room ambush. Marcus took notes, his expression growing darker. Mrs. Chen, what Nicole and Derek attempted is called elder financial abuse. It's a crime. The fact that they tried to coerce you while you were medically vulnerable makes it even worse. We need to take immediate action to protect you and your assets. What kind of action? First, we're going to file for a restraining order preventing them from contacting you or accessing your property. Second, we're going to alert the hospital administration that there were threats made in your room. They take that very seriously. Third, we're going to secure your house and make sure they don't have keys or access. And fourth, if they follow through on their threat to pursue guardianship, we're going to fight it aggressively. How much will this cost? I asked, thinking of my dwindling savings. For you? Nothing. This is pro bono. What they're doing makes me sick, and I'm not letting them get away with it. The relief I felt was overwhelming. I wasn't alone. I wasn't helpless. I had someone who believed me and was willing to fight for me. Marcus called the hospital administration, and within an hour, Nicole and Derek's names were flagged in the system as prohibited visitors. Hospital security was notified. If they tried to return, they'd be escorted out. I was discharged the next day. Carol picked me up and drove me home, where Marcus had already arranged for a locksmith to change all my locks. Did Nicole have a key? Marcus asked. Yes. I gave her one years ago for emergencies. Not anymore. New locks, new keys. No one gets in except you and people you explicitly authorize. Over the next week, while I recovered at home with Carol checking on me daily, Marcus worked on the legal strategy. He filed for a temporary restraining order, which was granted based on the hospital room threats and the pattern of financial exploitation. Nicole and Derek were served with papers prohibiting them from coming within 500 feet of me or my house. Nicole's response was swift and vicious. She posted on Facebook about how I'd turned against my own family and how she was heartbroken, that I'd chosen money over my daughter and grandson. She claimed I'd become paranoid and cruel in my old age and that she was trying to help, but I'd rejected her. Love. The post got dozens of comments from people who didn't know the full story, calling me selfish and ungrateful. Derek left me voicemails, which Marcus told me to save as evidence, that ranged from pleading, "Barbara, please, we can work this out," to threatening, "You're going to regret this. We'll make sure you die alone in that house with no one to help you." Each voicemail was forwarded to Marcus, who added it to our documentation. 2 weeks after my surgery, Nicole and Derek filed a petition for emergency guardianship, claiming I was mentally incompetent and unable to manage my affairs. They submitted an affidavit from a doctor I'd never met claiming I showed signs of dementia. They fabricated evidence of unpaid bills and financial mismanagement. They painted a picture of a confused, vulnerable elderly woman who needed her loving daughter to step in and protect her. It was all lies, but it was convincing lies. The guardianship hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks later. Marcus prepared me extensively. "Mrs. Chen, they're going to try to make you look confused, forgetful, incapable. You need to be sharp, specific, and confident. Can you do that?" "I'm a bank teller, Marcus. I've balanced accounts and dealt with complex transactions for 30 years. I can be sharp. Marcus brought in a geriatric psychiatrist, Dr. Helen Kim, to evaluate me. She spent 2 hours asking questions, testing my memory, assessing my decision-making capacity. At the end, she looked at me with concern. Mrs. Chen, there is absolutely nothing wrong with your cognitive function. Your memory is excellent. Your reasoning is sound. The claim that you have dementia is not just wrong, it's fraudulent. Why would they lie like that? Because your house is worth $420,000, and they're $143,000 in debt. It's not about your well-being. It's about their money problems. Dr. Kim's evaluation report was devastating to Nicole's case. It documented my perfect cognitive function, my clear understanding of my financial situation, and her professional opinion that the guardianship petition was a thinly veiled attempt at elder financial abuse. But Nicole and Derek weren't giving up. They recruited Derek's mother, Susan, to testify that she'd witnessed me acting confused and forgetful. They got 2 of Derek's friends to sign affidavits claiming they'd visited my house and found it in unsafe, unsanitary conditions. More lies. My house was immaculate. I'd been a meticulous housekeeper my entire adult life. The hearing felt like a trial. Nicole and Derek sat with their lawyer, a slick young woman named Amanda who specialized in guardianship cases. I sat with Marcus. The judge was a stern woman in her early 60s named Judge Patricia Morrison. Amanda presented their case first. She painted me as a tragic figure, a lonely widow whose cognitive decline was making her paranoid and hostile toward her loving daughter. She presented the fabricated doctor's note, Susan's testimony about my supposed confusion, the affidavits about my unsafe living conditions. Your Honor, Amanda said in closing, Nicole Chen loves her mother and only wants what's best for her. Mrs. Barbara Chen is in denial about her declining capabilities. She needs help, and she needs her daughter to provide that help through a guardianship that will protect her from her own poor decisions. Then it was Marcus's turn. He submitted Dr. Kim's comprehensive evaluation. He submitted my bank records showing I'd been managing my finances perfectly. All bills paid on time, no overdrafts, careful budgeting. He submitted Carol's testimony about my daily functioning, my clear mind, my independence. He submitted the hospital records of Nicole's threats. He submitted the voicemails. He submitted documentation of the $67,000 I'd given Nicole over 6 years. Your Honor, Marcus said, this is not a case of a daughter concerned about her mother's well-being. This is a case of financial predators trying to steal a 70-year-old woman's home to pay off their own debts. Mrs. Chen is cognitively intact, financially responsible, and physically capable. The only thing she's incapable of is continuing to be exploited by her daughter. Judge Morrison asked me to testify. I walked to the stand, still sore from surgery but determined. She asked me about my daily routine, my finances, my health, my relationship with Nicole. Mrs. Chen, she said finally, why do you think your daughter is seeking guardianship? Because she wants my house, Your Honor. She and her husband are heavily in debt, and they see my home as the solution to their financial problems. They tried to coerce me into signing it over while I was in the hospital recovering from surgery. When I refused, they filed this petition. This isn't about protecting me. It's about stealing from me. Judge Morrison turned to Nicole. Ms. Chen, you're seeking guardianship of your mother, who by all professional evaluations is mentally competent and financially responsible. Can you explain why you believe this is necessary? Nicole's lawyer jumped in, but the judge cut her off. I asked Ms. Chen directly. Nicole stood, trying to look concerned and dutiful. Your Honor, my mother has always been stubborn. She refuses to see that she needs help. I'm worried about her living alone, especially after her surgery. I just want to make sure she's safe and taken care of. And selling her house factors into that how? Nicole hesitated. Well, the proceeds could be used to ensure she has quality care, or to pay off your $143,000 in personal debts. That's not, if there was money left over after her care needs. Ms. Chen, I've reviewed the financial documents submitted by your mother's attorney. You and your husband have received $67,000 from your mother over the past 6 years. Not $1 has been repaid. You've also made multiple attempts to pressure her into selling her home. And now, mere days after she had emergency surgery while she was at her most vulnerable, you attempted to coerce her into signing real estate documents in her hospital room. Do you deny any of this? Nicole's face went pale. Your Honor, that's not how it happened. Do you deny attempting to get her to sign documents in the hospital? No, but do you deny that you threatened to pursue guardianship if she didn't comply? I was just trying to help. Answer the question, Ms. Chen. Did you threaten guardianship? Yes. Judge Morrison's expression was ice. This petition is denied. Not only denied, but I'm issuing a permanent restraining order prohibiting Nicole Chen and Derek Chen from any contact with Barbara Chen or any attempt to access her property or finances. I'm also referring this case to the district attorney for investigation of attempted elder financial abuse and fraud related to the fabricated medical documentation. Nicole gasped. Derek stood up, furious. This is bullshit. That's her daughter. You can't. Mr. Chen, sit down or I'll hold you in contempt. Amanda tried to intervene, asking for reconsideration, but Judge Morrison was done. This is one of the most egregious attempts at guardianship abuse I've seen in my 15 years on this bench. These petitioners saw a vulnerable elderly woman recovering from surgery and tried to rob her. I'm not allowing it. We're adjourned. I walked out of that courtroom with Marcus, Carol, and Dr. Kim, and for the first time in weeks, I could breathe. I had won, not just the hearing, but my freedom, my home, my dignity. Nicole and Derek's lives unraveled quickly after that. The district attorney did investigate and ultimately charged them with attempted fraud and elder abuse. They pleaded guilty to reduced charges to avoid trial, receiving probation, fines, and mandated restitution of $10,000 to me, a fraction of what they'd taken, but something. Derek lost his construction management job when his employer learned about the criminal charges. Nicole was fired from the dental office after the dentist discovered why she needed so much time off for family emergencies. Their financial situation, already dire, became catastrophic. They lost their house to foreclosure. The boat was repossessed. Derek's truck was repossessed. They moved into a small rental apartment with their son Ethan, who I heard through mutual acquaintances was confused and upset about why he couldn't see his grandmother anymore. That part hurt. I loved Ethan. He was 6 years old and innocent in all this, but I couldn't have a relationship with him without opening myself back up to Nicole and Derek's exploitation. It was a painful sacrifice, but a necessary one. I recovered from my surgery slowly but completely. Carol continued checking on me, but I proved I could manage on my own. I hired a teenager from down the street to help with yard work and heavy lifting. I joined a senior center and made new friends. I started volunteering at a legal aid clinic that Marcus worked with, helping other elderly people identify financial abuse from family members. A year after the hearing, I received a letter from Nicole. It was delivered through Marcus's office, since the restraining order prohibited direct contact. Mom, it read, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. What Derek and I did was wrong. We were desperate, drowning in debt, and we convinced ourselves that taking your house was somehow justified because it would be ours eventually anyway. That's not true, and it was never okay. I've been in therapy for 6 months, working through why I felt entitled to your money and your property. Derek and I are divorced. The stress of everything destroyed our marriage. I'm working 2 jobs to support Ethan and myself. I'm learning what you tried to teach me my whole life. The value of hard work and living within your means. I'm not asking for anything. I'm not asking you to lift the restraining order or to forgive me. I just wanted you to know that I understand now what I did, and I'm ashamed. I hope someday you can have peace knowing that I finally learned the lesson, even though it came at such a terrible cost. Love, Nicole. I read the letter 3 times. Part of me wanted to believe she'd genuinely changed. The mother in me wanted to reach out, to rebuild, to salvage something from the wreckage of our relationship. But the woman I'd become, the one who'd fought for her home and her dignity from a hospital bed, knew better. I wrote back through Marcus. Nicole, I appreciate your acknowledgement of what you did. I hope therapy helps you become a better person and a better mother to Ethan. But what you put me through, the betrayal, the threats, the attempt to steal my home while I was at my weakest, that's not something I can move past. I wish you well, but I can't have you in my life. Please don't contact me again. It was the hardest letter I've ever written, but it was also the most necessary. I'm 72 now, 2 years after the hospital room ambush that nearly cost me everything. I still live in my house. The house James and I bought 32 years ago. The house we paid off through sacrifice. The house that represents our life's work. I've updated it, made it more accessible for aging, grab bars in the bathroom, a first-floor bedroom, better lighting. I plan to live here until I can't anymore, and when that day comes, it will be my decision, not my daughter's. My savings have recovered. I'm careful with money, as I always was, and I've rebuilt what I spent on Nicole to about $95,000. It's enough. More than enough. I have my pension, my Social Security, my paid-off house, and my independence. I think about Nicole sometimes. Wonder if she's really changed or if the letter was just another manipulation. Wonder about Ethan and what he's been told about why his grandmother isn't in his life. Wonder if I'm too harsh, too unforgiving, too rigid in my boundaries. But then I remember lying in that hospital bed, weak and vulnerable and in pain, while my daughter tried to coerce me into signing away my home. I remember the coldness in her eyes, the calculation, the entitlement. And I know I made the right choice. Some betrayals are too deep to forgive. Some relationships aren't worth the cost of maintaining them. And some battles have to be fought, even when you're at your weakest, because the alternative is losing everything. My name is Barbara Chen. I'm 72 years old, and I have learned that the people who should protect you are sometimes the people you need protection from most. That being a good mother doesn't mean being a victim. That family who treats you like an ATM with an expiration date isn't family at all. And that fighting back when you're vulnerable isn't weakness. It's the ultimate act of strength. If you're an elderly person being pressured by family members to sign over property, access accounts, or make financial decisions you're uncomfortable with, please know you have rights. Document everything. Tell someone you trust. Find a lawyer who specializes in elder law. And don't let anyone, not even your own children, steal your security and dignity. Have you experienced financial abuse from family members? How did you handle it? What advice would you give to others in similar situations? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Please like and subscribe to this channel for more stories about setting boundaries and protecting yourself from family exploitation. Sharing these stories helps others recognize abuse and find the courage to fight back. Remember, your home is yours. Your money is yours. Your life is yours. And you are never too old or too sick to fight for what's rightfully yours. With strength and hard-won peace, Barbara.